Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. This video is a follow-up to the one I did yesterday about the SNP government being taken to court by the pressure group For Women Scotland over the use or definition of women. The SNP insists that women includes men. For Women Scotland say that that is not only detrimental to the safety of women, but is illegal under the 2010 Equality Act. Both sides had their say in court yesterday, and we're just going to take a look at the summary of what happened and what was said. So, the headline here, feminists accuse Nicola Sturgeon of denying biology as they launch a legal action to quash the SNP reforms, which state transgender women are legally female. In other words, men are female in law. Now, I actually don't like the term feminists accuse Nicola Sturgeon. That seems very provocative, and it just goes to show how the mainstream media view this and how they are also on the side of the mentally ill and the disillusioned. Because, as I say many times, wishing for something doesn't make it so. Let's not use the abrasive term feminists and use the term women or normal people. But we will go with their words. Feminists have accused Nicola Sturgeon's government of biological denialism, and they have launched a legal action to quash the controversial SNP reforms. Ministers have issued guidance stating that transgender women, i.e. men, are legally women. They may legally be women, but they're not actually women, and that is the problem. Campaign group For Women Scotland have taken ministers to the Court of Session to challenge a proposal to broaden the legal definition of women to include transgender people with a female gender recognition certificate. They have argued that the change, which the government hopes would boost the number of transgender people on Scottish public boards, is unlawful under the Equality Act. Yeah, what they're saying is they want to increase the number of transgender people across the spectrum. I don't know why. It's a mental illness you shouldn't be promoting, and it is absolute disillusionment, again, you shouldn't be promoting. But what they're saying is if we promote transgenders, we're going to reduce the number of women. Because if you have a board which is, let's say, 50-50, men and women, you'd say that was fair. But now you have to put transgenders in there. So if a third of them are transgender, you're going to have 2/3 men and 1/3 women. How is that pushing the rights and freedoms of women in Scotland? What you're saying is the best woman for the job is a man. Yesterday, advocate Aidan O'Neill KC said the law's definition came from biological differences between the sexes. He added, women menstruate, go through the menopause, become pregnant and give birth. Things that no man has ever done, no matter how nice a frock he wears. They also bear social expectations to be responsible for child rearing. Mr O'Neill said that the Scottish Government's proposal was based on what he called biological denialism. They actually want to deny women. I think they just don't like women. And they keep pushing for men to be prominent in everything. Because this is all about putting men with mental illness and disillusionment with reality, no attachment to reality, into positions of power. Now, we don't want the mentally ill making our decisions. This is just plain common sense. But anyway, For Women Scotland won a previous Court of Session case over the government's 2018 Gender Representation on Public Boards Act when judges ruled it breached the 2010 Equality Act. Yes, it did, because the 2010 Equality Act states sex as being biological, the sex assigned at birth. And I hate that term, assigned, because it's almost as though there's a nurse with a clipboard going, right, this next one out will be male, regardless of what you are. You're not assigned anything, you are. But anyway, the government put forward a proposed solution in statutory guidance published in April, which said that a trans person with a gender recognition certificate would be regarded as male or female, depending on their acquired gender. But at yesterday's judicial review, being heard by Lady Haldane, Mr O'Neill said the suggested resolution was still unlawful, as the Equality Act states a woman is a person who is born female, while a man is someone who is born male. And what they're doing is they're actually endangering the lives of women with this. And I keep saying this, I still cannot see their absolute obsession with allowing men into safe spaces for women? Why do they want men to go into crisis centres? Why do they want men to go into DV units? Why do they want men to have access to ladies-only changing rooms where there may be young girls? And this is the whole point, and I've said this all along. It's almost as though they're pushing for the deconstruction of women and also pushing for the acceptance of P. This is a slice-by-slice approach to normalise P, because they want the P in the LGBT. It's the only explanation for the way they are constantly pushing that. And like I say, the mainstream media are not pushing back. He went on to say that it would also drive a horse and coach through the concept of safe spaces for biological women, I've just mentioned. Mr. O'Neill added, the preservation of safe spaces is done on the understanding of biological sex. They are safe spaces for women who do not have a gender recognition certificate. The Scottish Government interpretation runs a horse and coach through that interpretation by adding that a male with a gender recognition certificate can access these services. Imagine you are a young woman, you've been the victim of a horrendous R. There could have been, we talk a very severe R. You will absolutely be nervous around men. You will be emotionally damaged, possibly physically damaged. And the last thing you want is to sit in a room with other women discussing the traumatic events as part of a sort of a cathartic release to try and get over the awful thing that's happened to you. And as you're standing there or sitting there chatting, talking it through and letting it out, imagine a man walks in, sits next to you and looks at you with his little bit of stubble, and his big manly hands and his Adam's apple and goes, yeah, love, I completely understand. Think of the psychological damage that will do to that victim. She will be victimised again. And that seems to be the whole desire of the SNP in Scotland. I don't get it. What is wrong with these people? It's not as though they don't know. They absolutely do know. If the court finds against me, that means any positive action measures in favour of women, like systemic underrepresentation of women in the workforce, would have to include any biological man who's got a gender recognition certificate. And trans men such as Freddie McConnell, who gave birth in 2018 after getting a gender recognition certificate, could also lose out on rights afforded to women the courts heard. Mr. O'Neill said it was his opinion that under Scottish Government proposals, Mr. O'Connell would not be able to access his maternity rights in the same way as a woman without a gender recognition certificate. He said there'd be a big black hole for the Freddie McConnells of the world. Mr. O'Neill urged Lady Haldane to uphold the protected characteristics of the Equality Act 2010, saying it would protect women's rights. And around 20 to 25 people in Scotland apply for gender recognition certificates each year. So out of a population of 5 million, you're talking 20 to 25 individuals. It's so small. It's such a tiny, tiny number. And yet the Scottish Government is obsessed to the point of almost everything else. The only thing in the SNP's mind that is more important than allowing men access to women's safe spaces is independence. They are the only two things they care about. Women's safety, don't care. Children's safety, don't care. Education, not our concern. The drug problem in Scotland, who cares? But men having access to women and children in their safe spaces, yep, that's really important. That's where we're going. That's our direction of travel. And that makes you wonder what sick bastards are running the SNP if that is all they care about. The judicial review continues today. I am out of here. I'm going to go up and round off. The problem you've got in Scotland is this bill is so badly thought out. At the committee stage, they invited 17 trans in to talk to the committee to explain their problems. Oh, this is unfair and that's unfair and we can't do this. We can't get in there. And the committee nodded, sympathetically. Oh, yes, terrible, terrible, terrible. And when the gainsayers said, hang on a minute, let's bring these women in, and they wanted to bring in 5 women. These 5 women were the victims of male DV, of R, things like that. And the committee said, no, we don't want to hear from women. We don't want to hear from women who are the victims of men. We only want to hear from men who live in the delusion that one day they will wake up and magically become women. So they knew the problems were there. They absolutely knew the problems were there. And they chose to ignore them. And that is why this bill is so bad. And it is why it needs this review. No woman in Scotland will be safe if this bill goes through. Now, how can you have any kind of legitimacy if you're not hearing all sides of the argument? But of course, this is the problem. You're not going to hear all sides of the argument because this is Nicola Sturgeon's Scotland. It's a one-person state. What she says goes. And if you disagree with her, you get short shrift. You get the cold shoulder. You get out of the party. You are a no person. You are Stalin-esquely, taken out of photographs. But it isn't Stalin that she's like. It's like a different leader from Second World War. One that was on perhaps the German side. Because that is the state she is running now. It is becoming increasingly fascist under this one-person dictatorship in Scotland. And she is just filled with hate. I mean, obviously her hate of the English is well known, but her hate for women, her hate for democracy. Inside her soul, it must be a writhing mass of filth and corruption, because she's got no good points to her. There is nothing that you can say that is positive about that toxic dwarf. But until she's taken out of power, you're stuck with her. So it's up to the people of Scotland to make sure that at the next election, a certain party is no longer a politician. And I shall round there. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well away from Nicola, and goodbye.